Man, it's still hard to talk about this. Even now, my hands shake when I think about it all. But I guess I need to get it out, you know? Let me tell you about how my whole life fell apart in a single afternoon. But first, you need to understand what I lost. God, we were so happy. Or at least I thought we were. I met Cassie 6 years ago at this stupid backyard barbecue. My best friend Tony, yeah, that lying snake. He was grilling these awful burgers that were basically charcoal. I was giving him grief about it when she walked in. Man, I remember everything about that moment. She had on this yellow dress, nothing fancy, but the way she smiled. I just stopped mid-sentence like some lovesick teenager. Tony noticed and started laughing. Earth to Brian. You gonna finish telling me how much I stink at grilling? But I wasn't listening. I was watching her laugh at something Tony's wife Peggy was saying. The way she threw her head back, completely unself-conscious. The way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she caught me staring. I finally got the nerve to walk over, probably looking like a complete idiot. Hey, want a burger? They're really well done. Like, really well done. She laughed. God, that laugh. I noticed. I'm Cassie. I work with Peggy. Brian. I'm the guy who's been trying to teach Tony how to grill for the past decade. Obviously failing miserably. We talked for hours that day. About everything and nothing. She loved true crime podcasts, hated pickles, and had this weird thing about not stepping on sidewalk cracks. She was so real, you know? Not trying to impress anyone, just her. We got married a year and a half later. Tony was my best man, standing there in his tux, getting all emotional during his speech. Brian's the brother I never had, he said, raising his glass. And now Cassie's family too. Just thinking about that speech now makes me want to punch something. Life was good, you know? Really good. We had our routine, Sunday brunches with Tony and Peggy, movie nights where Cassie would always fall asleep halfway through, weekend trips to the lake. Peggy was pregnant, and Cassie and I were talking about having kids too. I'd catch myself watching her sometimes, just doing normal stuff like reading on the couch or making coffee, and think, how did I get so lucky? Then things started changing. Little things at first. She joined this fancy gym downtown, started wearing different clothes. Nothing crazy, but different. More makeup, new perfume. I actually liked it at first. She seemed happier, more confident. But then came the late nights at work. The phone calls she'd take in another room. The way she'd jump like she'd been shocked whenever her phone buzzed. Work's crazy right now, she'd say, not meeting my eyes. Big project coming up. I try to joke about it. Should I be jealous of all these late nights at the office? She'd laugh, but it wasn't her real laugh. Not the one from the barbecue. Don't be silly, babe. You know you're the only one for me. I believed her. Man, I feel like such an idiot now, but I believed every word. Even when she started going out more with work friends, always last-minute plans, always when I had something else going on. The worst part? Tony would back up her stories. Yeah, man, the office is insane right now. You should see the hours everyone's pulling. It was at our last Friday dinner together that something finally clicked. We were all in our backyard, me grilling, properly, unlike some people, Peggy talking about ultrasound pictures, Tony and Cassie sitting at the patio table. I turned to ask if anyone wanted another beer, and I caught this look between them, just for a second, but, you know when your gut just knows something's wrong? Like really, really wrong? That night, after they left, I couldn't sleep. Kept replaying everything in my head. The late nights. The secret phone calls. The way Tony had stopped meeting my eyes when we talked about work. Next morning, I did something I'd never done before. I checked our phone records. My God, the number of calls and texts between them. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely hold my phone. That evening, Cassie kissed me goodbye, said she was meeting Peggy for dinner. I waited until she pulled out of the driveway, then called Peggy. Her answer knocked the wind out of me. No dinner plans. No girls' night. Nothing. I sat in our dark kitchen for hours, just staring at nothing, thinking about every smile, every excuse, every single lie. The woman I loved, the man I considered a brother. They'd been playing me for a fool. You know what the really messed up part is? Part of me didn't want to know more. Wanted to pretend everything was fine, go back to our perfect little life. But I couldn't. Once you start seeing the cracks, you can't unsee them. So I made a plan. Tomorrow, I'd leave work early, catch them in whatever lie they were living. I just didn't know that tomorrow would be the day everything burned to the ground. I remember every single detail of that day. Funny how your mind works like that, right? Like it knows this is something you'll need to replay over and over, trying to make sense of it. It was a Wednesday, one of those perfect spring mornings where everything looks bright and clean. The kind of day that has no business destroying someone's life. I barely slept the night before, just paced around the house like a ghost, checking my phone every few minutes, hoping I was wrong about everything. I told my boss I was getting a migraine. Must have looked pretty rough because he just took one look at my face and told me to go home and rest. If he only knew. The drive home felt like it took forever. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely grip the steering wheel. Part of me was praying I was wrong, that I'd walk in and everything would be normal. But deep down, I knew. I parked a block away from our house, feeling like some kind of spy in my own neighborhood. Cassie's car was in the driveway. So was Tony's silver Audi, the one I helped him pick out last year. Just looking at it made my stomach turn. I used the side door to the garage, the one that never quite closes right. Cassie was always nagging me to fix it. Guess I should thank her for that now. The house was quiet at first. Then I heard it, a laugh. Her laugh. Coming from upstairs. You know that moment in movies where everything goes red? That's not how it happens. Everything gets crystal clear instead. Every sound, every movement, every tiny detail burns itself into your brain. I took off my boots, moved like a ghost up those stairs. 15 years of living in this house, I knew exactly which floorboards would creak. The bedroom door was cracked open, just enough to see. There was a long pause for a few seconds. They were in our bed. Our bed. The one we picked out together at that furniture store in the mall. The one where we'd spent lazy Sunday mornings reading the paper and planning our future. I don't know how long I stood there, watching my life fall apart. Maybe seconds. Maybe hours. Then Tony said something that made her giggle, that same giggle from the barbecue, and something in me snapped. I kicked the door open so hard it left a hole in the wall. The bang made them both jump like they'd been shot. Brian! Cassie screamed, scrambling for the sheets. Her face went white as paper. Oh God, oh God. Tony just froze, staring at me like a deer in headlights. My best friend. The guy who was supposed to be my brother. Get out. My voice didn't even sound like mine. Too calm. Too quiet. Brian, man, let me explain, Tony started, reaching for his clothes. Get out. This time I roared it, grabbing the lamp from the nightstand and hurling it at him. It missed, shattering against the wall. He scrambled for his clothes, tripping over himself. Cassie was crying, saying something, but all I could hear was this roaring in my ears. Brian, please, she sobbed. Please, we need to talk about this. Talk? I laughed, and it sounded crazy even to me. Now you want to talk? Tony was half-dressed, backing toward the door. I grabbed him by the collar and slammed him against the wall. How long? I growled. How long? I'm sorry, he choked out. I'm so sorry. Your wife is pregnant, you piece of garbage. I pulled back my fist, wanting nothing more than to break him. Brian, stop. Cassie screamed. Please, you'll hurt him. Something in her voice, the fact that she was worried about him, made me let go. Tony slid down the wall, gasping. Get out, I said again, my voice shaking. Before I changed my mind, he ran. I could hear him stumbling down the stairs, keys jingling. I turned to Cassie, still wrapped in our sheets, mascara running down her face. How could you? Brian, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. It just happened. Just happened? I grabbed the framed photo of our wedding from the dresser and smashed it on the floor. Just happened? For how long, Cassie? Weeks? Months? She flinched at each question, tears streaming down her face. Please, let me explain. Save it. I turned and headed downstairs. I could hear her calling after me, but I was already moving with purpose. Tony was at his car, fumbling with his keys. His hands were shaking so bad he dropped them twice. I walked straight to the garage and grabbed my old baseball bat. The one from college games. The one Tony and I used to practice with on weekends. Hey, I called out. He turned, saw the bat, and his eyes went wide. Brian, come on, man. The first swing caught his driver's side mirror, sending it flying across the street. The second one spiderwebbed his windshield. My brother, I spat, taking another swing at his headlight. That's what you called yourself. My brother. He backed away, hands up. I'll pay for it, just please. Pay for it. I laughed again, that same crazy sound. You think this is about money? I kept swinging until his car looked like it had been through a war zone. Neighbors were coming out now, phones in hand, probably calling the police. Get in, I growled, pointing the bat at him. Drive away before I decide to use this on something besides your car. He didn't need to be told twice. The engine roared to life, and he peeled out so fast he left rubber on the road. I stood there in the middle of the street, bat hanging at my side, watching his destroyed car disappear around the corner. The sun was still shining. Birds were still singing, like the world hadn't just ended. Cassie was on the porch now, wrapped in a robe, still crying. Brian. I turned to look at her, and whatever she saw in my face made her step back. When I come back inside, I said, my voice deadly quiet, you better be ready to tell me everything. And I mean everything. She nodded, trembling. I looked down at the bat in my hand, remembering all the games Tony and I had played, all the beers we'd shared, all the lies. This was just the beginning, and I was nowhere near done. The walk back into the house felt like miles, each step heavier than the last. The baseball bat was still in my hand. I couldn't seem to let it go. My wedding ring felt like it was burning against my skin. Cassie was sitting on the couch, still in her robe, makeup streaked down her face. She looked small somehow, different, like a stranger wearing my wife's face. How long? My voice came out hoarse. I was still standing, couldn't bring myself to sit, couldn't bear to be that close to her. She stared at her hands, twisting them in her lap. 8 months, she whispered. 8 months. 8 months of lies. Of Sunday brunches and movie nights and family dinners. Of kissing me goodbye while heading to him. Were you ever going to tell me? I asked, gripping the bat tighter. I don't know. At least she was honest about that. I wanted to end it so many times, but what? I cut her off. But you just couldn't help yourself? But it was too exciting? But poor Tony needed you? She flinched at his name. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like, Cassie? Please, explain to me how you sleep with your husband's best friend for 8 months, and it's not like that. Tears were flowing freely now. I was lonely, she said softly. You were working so much, and Tony, he was just there. I laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. I was working extra hours to save for the house you wanted, the future you planned. Remember all those talks about having kids? Was that before or after you started sleeping with him? Brian, please. Did you laugh about it? I asked, my voice rising. Did you two sit there at our dinner table, watching me serve you drinks, and laugh about how stupid I was? No. She stood up suddenly. It wasn't like that. We felt terrible. Terrible? I hurled the bat across the room. It crashed into the wall, leaving a dent. You felt so terrible you kept doing it? For 8 months? She sank back onto the couch, sobbing. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Does Peggy know? I asked. The thought of Tony's pregnant wife made my stomach turn. Cassie shook her head. Please don't tell her. Not while she's pregnant. It would destroy her. Like you destroyed me? The words came out quiet, but they hit hard. You don't get to make that call anymore, Cassie. You lost that right the moment you decided to betray everyone who loved you. I walked to our mantel, looking at all the photos. Us on our wedding day. Family Christmas last year. Camping trips with Tony and Peggy. Every memory tainted now. I want you gone by morning, I said, not looking at her. Pack whatever you need and leave. I don't care where you go. Brian. Her voice broke. Please don't do this. We can work through this. Go to counseling. Try to what? I turned to face her. Try to forget that every time you said, I love you, you were lying? Try to forget finding you in our bed with my best friend? There's no coming back from this, Cassie. She stood again, took a step toward me. I do love you. I know you don't believe that right now, but you're right. I don't believe you. I backed away from her. I don't believe anything anymore. Not about us. Not about the last 6 years. Not about love. You broke something in me today, Cassie. Something that can't be fixed. She reached for me, but I moved past her toward the stairs. I'm going to pack a bag and stay at a hotel. When I come back tomorrow, you better be gone. What about all our plans? She asked, her voice small. Our future. I stopped at the bottom of the stairs. Our future died the moment you chose him over me. Over us. The only thing left now is goodbye. As I climbed the stairs, I heard her collapse onto the couch, crying harder. Part of me wanted to comfort her. 6 years of loving someone doesn't just disappear in an afternoon. But that part was getting smaller by the minute, buried under an avalanche of betrayal and lies. In our bedroom, no, my bedroom now. I grabbed a duffel bag and started throwing clothes in. The bed was still messed up. Her perfume still hung in the air. I stripped the sheets off and threw them in the corner. I'd burn them later. When I came back downstairs, Cassie was standing by the door, her arms wrapped around herself. I never meant to hurt you, she said quietly. I looked at her one last time, really looked at her, trying to see the woman I married, the woman I thought would grow old with me. But she wasn't there anymore. Maybe she never was. Goodbye, Cassie. The door clicked shut behind me, and I walked to my car without looking back. The sun was setting now, painting everything in shades of red and gold. A beautiful ending to the worst day of my life. But it wasn't really the end. No, this was just the beginning. Because tomorrow, I had another conversation to have. With Peggy. Some people say the truth hurts. But lies? Lies destroy everything they touch. And I was done watching them destroy the people I cared about. Tony's words from our wedding day echoed in my head, like a brother to me. Well, brother, I thought, starting my car. Let's see how family handles family. You know what's weird? I remember exactly what song was playing on the radio when I finally turned it off that night. Some old love song. Ironic, right? I couldn't stay at home. Kept seeing, So I just drove. 4 hours. No destination. Ended up at all these places I didn't mean to go. That Italian place where Tony and I used to grab lunch. The park where we'd play basketball on weekends. Our old high school. 20 years of memories. God, we met when we were 14. Stupid kids worried about math tests and baseball games. You want to know something really messed up? I actually felt guilty about having to tell Peggy. Like somehow I was the bad guy for having to blow up her life. Sat in my car outside their house that morning, watching the sun come up, trying to talk myself into doing it. And out of it. And into it again. Their house, man. It looked so normal, Like one of those perfect family homes in commercials. Peggy's got these wind chimes she bought at some craft fair. Little garden she started when she got pregnant with Emma. One of those welcome signs with their family name. And there I was, about to take a wrecking ball to all of it. I must have checked my phone 50 times, hoping maybe Cassie would call and say it was all a mistake. Stupid, right? But your brain does weird things when nothing makes sense anymore. When Peggy opened that door, she had Emma on her hip, big smile on her face, still in her morning robe. And for a second, just a second, I almost turned around and left. Because that smile, that innocent, happy smile, I was about to destroy it forever. Brian. She knew something was wrong right away. Mothers always know, I guess. You look terrible. Come in. I'll make coffee. But I couldn't move past the doorway at first. Just stood there staring at their family photos in the hall. There was this big one from Christmas. All of us together, smiling, Peggy already showing a little. Tony's got his hand on her stomach in that proud dad way. And Cassie, she's leaning against me, looking at me with what I thought was love. 8 months. They've been lying to our faces for 8 months. Peggy put Emma down for her nap first. I remember hearing her singing some little lullaby upstairs. Made my stomach hurt, thinking about what I was about to do to her. To that baby. When she came back down, God, this is the hard part to talk about. She sat there, both hands on her pregnant belly, looking at me with such concern, worried about me, if you can believe it. Brian, you're scaring me. What's going on? I opened my mouth, but nothing came out at first. You think about how to say something like this, but when the moment comes, there's just no good way. It's about Tony, I managed finally. My voice sounded weird, rough. And Cassie, you ever seen someone just, no? Before you even say it? Their face just changes. Like they've been waiting for this moment without even knowing they were waiting. When I told her, she made this sound. I never want to hear anyone make that sound again. Like her heart was actually breaking. And then, man, talk about timing. We heard his key in the door. You know what's really messed up? Part of me was glad Tony walked in right then. Glad he had to face it. Glad he couldn't hide anymore. What kind of person does that make me? The way Peggy looked at him. Think about that sometimes. The exact moment she stopped seeing her husband and started seeing a stranger. Is it true? Her voice was so quiet. Scary quiet. I've known Tony since we were kids, right? Seen him in every situation you can imagine. But I'd never seen him look scared before. Not like that. Honey, let me explain. You know that moment in movies where someone says exactly the wrong thing? Yeah. Real life's like that too sometimes. 7 months pregnant, and Peggy moved like lightning. The slap was so loud it woke up Emma upstairs. Started crying, but Peggy didn't even flinch. Just kept staring at Tony like she was seeing him for the first time. I had to leave after that. Felt like I was intruding on their pain, you know? Even though I was going through the same thing. This was their moment. Their world ending. Sat in my car, though. Couldn't make myself drive away. Kept thinking about all the Sunday dinners we'd had in that house. Game nights. Birthday parties. Real memories. Real happiness. Or at least I thought it was real. Then my phone buzzed. Cassie, got my things. Left the key. I'm so sorry, Brian. For everything. Sorry. Like sorry fixes anything. Like sorry makes up for. You want to know the really messed up part? When I finally drove home, I caught myself worrying about whether Tony had somewhere to go. My best friend sleeps with my wife for 8 months, and I'm worried about whether he has a place to sleep. Old habits, I guess. Hard to turn off 20 years of friendship in a day. But you know what? That was the last time I worried about either of them. Had to learn to be selfish. To put myself first. Sometimes I wonder if they knew. That morning when they woke up, did they know it was their last morning of pretending? Their last few hours of playing house with other people's hearts? Guess it doesn't matter now. Can't undo what's done. Can't unfeel what you felt. Can't unlearn what betrayal tastes like. But at least now everybody knows the truth. And truth's gotta be better than lies. Right? You know what's funny? People keep asking me if I'm okay. Like there's some kind of timeline for this stuff. Like you wake up one morning and magically everything's fixed. 3 weeks. That's how long it had been since, 3 weeks of trying to remember how to be a person again. First week, I barely left the office. Worked until my eyes burned. Anything to avoid going home to that empty house. My boss finally pulled me aside, told me to take some time off. Said I looked like death warmed over. Probably did. The divorce papers showed up on a Tuesday. Just sitting there in my mailbox like they were normal mail. Like they weren't the death certificate for my whole marriage. I left them on the kitchen counter for 2 days before I could even open the envelope. My lawyer, Mike, he's this straight shooter type. No nonsense. You've got a solid case, he tells me. Could really make them pay. But you know what? I was just tired. So tired of all of it. Told him to just make it simple. Quick. Like ripping off a Band-Aid. Got a call from Peggy that same week. First time I'd heard from her since that day. Her voice sounded different. Stronger, maybe. Can we meet? She asked. I need someone who gets it. We ended up at this little coffee place downtown. One of those spots where Cassie and I used to. Never mind. Doesn't matter now. Peggy looked different too. Still pregnant. Really showing now. But something in her eyes had changed. Like she'd aged 10 years in 3 weeks. Tony keeps calling, she told me, stirring her tea. Says he made a mistake. Wants to work it out. Says he loves me. You should have heard how she said, loves. Like it was poison in her mouth. What are you gonna do? I asked her. You know what's crazy? For about 5 minutes, I actually considered it. For the baby's sake, you know? Then I remembered how many times he must have kissed me goodbye and gone straight to her. How many times God. We were trying for this baby while he was. I couldn't even look at her. Just stared at my coffee getting cold. I'm leaving him, she said finally. Filed the papers yesterday. He can see the kids. But me? I'm done. Something about hearing her say that, it was like permission, you know? Like if Peggy could be that strong, maybe I could too. That weekend I finally started dealing with the house. Kept finding little pieces of Cassie everywhere. Bobby pins in the bathroom drawer. Her favorite coffee mug in the cabinet. That stupid throw pillow she just had to have from Target. Made a pile in the backyard. Was gonna burn it all, but ended up just putting it in boxes. Marked them Cassie, and had them sent to her sister's place. Didn't even leave a note. You want to know the worst part? Sometimes I still wake up and forget. Just for a second. Roll over expecting to find her there. Then it all comes crashing back, and it's like losing her all over again. Peggy came over to help me sort through stuff one day. We worked quiet mostly. Just two people picking through the wreckage of our lives. Found this photo from that first barbecue. The day I met Cassie. The day Tony introduced us. Remember how happy we were? Peggy asked, looking at it. Was any of it real? I think about that a lot. Were we really happy? Or were we just really good at pretending? Tony got transferred to another branch. Couldn't handle the gossip at work, I guess. His stuff from the office got delivered to my house by mistake. Just a box of junk really. Photos. Coffee mug. Baseball we used to throw around at lunch. 20 years of friendship in a cardboard box. You know what kills me? Peggy said while we were packing it up. I keep thinking about all the little moments. All the times he held my hand, or kissed me goodbye, or talked about our future. Was he thinking about her then? Was he comparing us? Were they laughing about how stupid we were? I didn't have an answer for her. Still don't. She's due in 2 weeks. Asked me to be there at the hospital. Said she doesn't want to do it alone. Imagine that, me in the waiting room while my ex-best friend's baby is born. Life's got a sick sense of humor sometimes. But you know what? Maybe that's what healing looks like. Not getting over it, but getting through it. Learning how to carry the pain without letting it carry you. Tonight I'm sitting on my back porch. Same porch where we used to sit together, making plans, dreaming about the future. Stars are still the same. World's still turning. Cassie texted again today. I miss you, she said. Can we talk? Didn't answer. Some bridges you burn because you have to. Some people you let go because holding on hurts more than letting go. Tomorrow I'll file those divorce papers. Tomorrow I'll take another step forward. But tonight I'm just gonna sit here and remember how to breathe on my own again. 6 months. That's how long it took me to stop checking my phone every time it buzzed, hoping it might be her. Hoping she'd have some magic explanation that would make everything make sense again. Stupid, right? You know what nobody tells you about betrayal? How it messes with your memories. Like, I can't even look at our wedding photos anymore. Keep thinking, was she already thinking about him then? When she said, I do, was she already wondering if she made the right choice? The divorce was quick at least. My lawyer wanted me to go after them both, really make them pay. But I just wanted it done. Signed the papers on a Wednesday morning. Didn't feel like I thought it would. No weight lifting off my shoulders. No sudden freedom. Just empty. Ran into Tony at the grocery store last week. First time I'd seen him since, he was holding his new baby, little boy. Looks just like him. We both just stood there in the cereal aisle like idiots. What do you even say to someone who destroyed your whole world? He tried to talk to me. Brian, man, I've been wanting to tell you. I just walked away. Left my cart right there in the middle of the aisle. Some things don't deserve closure, you know? Peggy's doing better. She moved to a smaller place closer to her mom. The kids are adjusting. Emma asks about daddy sometimes, but less and less now. The baby won't remember any of this. Maybe that's a blessing. We have coffee sometimes, me and Peggy. Not romantic or anything, just two people who understand each other's scars. Last time, she asked me if I'd ever trust anyone again. I don't know, I told her. Honest answer. Some days I think maybe. Other days. She got it. Didn't need to explain more. People keep telling me I should start dating again. Get back out there, they say. Like my heart's just some engine that needs a jump start. My sister even tried to set me up with her friend from work. Nice lady, pretty smile. But I sat there the whole dinner wondering if she was texting someone else under the table. If she had a best friend's husband waiting at home. That's the real damage, isn't it? The way it makes you doubt everything. Everyone. Cassie sent me a letter last month. Actually wrote it by hand, like we're living in some romance novel or something. Said she's in therapy now, working on herself. Said she never meant to hurt me, that she was lost and confused and a bunch of other words that don't mean anything anymore. I burned it in the backyard. Watched her perfect handwriting turn to ashes. Felt good, in a way that didn't feel good at all. Started fixing up the house lately. Painted the bedroom. No more blue walls she picked out. Rearranged all the furniture. Bought new sheets, new towels, new everything. Like I'm trying to erase any trace that she was ever here. But you can't erase memories, can you? Can't paint over the spot where we slow danced in the kitchen at midnight. Can't throw away the feeling of waking up next to her on Sunday mornings. Can't return the dreams we built together. My mom says time heals all wounds. I think that's garbage. Time doesn't heal anything. It just teaches you how to carry the weight better. How to breathe around the pain. You want to know the weirdest part? Sometimes I miss Tony more than I miss her. 20 years of friendship. He was there when my dad died. When I got my first real job. When I bought my first house. How do you just erase someone like that from your life? But then I remember how he looked in my bedroom that day, and all I feel is cold. Peggy asked me yesterday if I regret knowing the truth. If I wish I'd never walked up those stairs that day. Had to think about it for a while. No, I finally told her. Living a lie isn't really living. Maybe that's what this whole mess taught me. That sometimes the truth hurts like hell, but at least it's real. At least it's honest. I still have that photo from the barbecue where I met Cassie. Keep it in my desk drawer at work. Not because I miss her, exactly. More like a reminder of who I was, of how far I've come, of how love can blind you and break you, and somehow leave you stronger. Last night, I did something I haven't done in months. Sat on the front porch with a beer, watching the sunset. Used to be our thing, me and Cassie. Now it's just my thing. And you know what? Maybe that's okay. Maybe that's what healing really is. Not going back to who you were before, but learning to be okay with who you are now. Still don't know if I'll ever trust anyone like that again. Still don't know if I want to. But I'm breathing easier these days. Sleeping better. Learning to live in this new version of my life. They say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I think that's only half true. What doesn't kill you makes you different. And sometimes different is exactly what you need to be. So here I am. Still standing. Still breathing. Still figuring it out one day at a time. And you know what? That's enough for now. That's enough.